In the serene highlands of Mount Kenya, a family of wealth and influence lives behind a facade of luxury. Until his son and daughter stumble upon a secret that will change everything. Meet Muriuki Enjorej, a respected businessman, devoted father, and loving husband. But beneath the glitz, he hides a dark secret, a drug empire that stretches across East Africa, built on lies, danger, and deception. His family knows nothing of his double life. Or so he thinks. Welcome to Drama Horn. But what happens when Muriuki's own family, his wife, son, and daughter, discover the truth? Fueled by betrayal and a sense of justice, Muriuki's family decide to confront the man they once idolized. Using their connections in the social circles and social media, his family decide to cover up and save their father's empire from the inside, setting off a chain of events that threatens to tear their family apart. In a battle where blood is thicker than water but secrets run deeper, who will come out on top? Prepare for a story filled with drama, suspense, and a twist you won't see coming. The morning sun shines through the misty hills of Nairi, casting a golden hue over the sprawling mansion of the Muriuki family. Muriuki is a man in his early 50s, standing at a solid 6 feet with a muscular build that speaks of his disciplined past as a young athlete. His once jet black hair is now peppered with streaks of gray, giving him a distinguished air. Muriuki's complexion is a rich, deep brown, characteristic of his Kikuyu heritage, with a smooth, even tone that seems to defy his age. His face is sharp, with high cheekbones and a neatly trimmed beard that frames his strong jawline. Always dressed in tailored suits and expensive watches, Muriuki radiates an aura of authority, with eyes that seem to pierce through anyone who challenges him. His wife, Wanjiku Enjorej, is a striking woman in her late 40s, known for her poise and elegance. Standing at 5 feet 8 inches, she carries herself with the grace of someone accustomed to commanding respect. Her skin is a lighter brown, with a natural glow that has been well preserved despite her demanding career as a senior government official. Wanjiku's hair is often styled in a sleek bob that falls just above her shoulders, sometimes braided into intricate designs for special occasions. Her almond-shaped eyes, framed by long lashes, can shift from warmth to a steely gaze in an instant, especially when dealing with matters of state. Though her figure has softened slightly over the years, she still maintains a slender, athletic build through regular yoga sessions and morning runs in their lush garden. Wanjiku's wardrobe is filled with colorful kitenge dresses for traditional gatherings and sharp, tailored suits that exude professionalism. Their eldest child, Muthoni Enjorej, is 24 years old and is a mirror of her mother's elegance. She stands at 5 feet 6 inches, with a medium brown complexion that carries a youthful glow. Muthoni has a slim, toned physique, the result of years of swimming and dance classes that her mother insisted on during her school years. Her hair is usually worn in long, flowing natural curls, though she occasionally styles it into neat, high ponytails. Muthoni's style is a blend of traditional African prints and modern fashion, favoring flowy skirts, wrap dresses, and bold accessories. Her face is framed by delicate features, full lips, a small nose, and expressive eyes that seem to miss nothing. As a recent law school graduate, she is fiercely intelligent and ambitious, with a sharp tongue and a love for debate. Muthoni carries herself with an air of self-confidence, but she's starting to notice cracks in the seemingly perfect life her family leads. Mwangi Enjorej, the youngest in the family at 22, is a stark contrast to his sister's composed nature. Standing at 5 feet 11 inches, he has a lean, athletic build, a testament to his love for sports, especially football. His skin is a warm, medium brown, with a slightly rugged look due to his love for adventure and the outdoors. Mwangi's hair is cut short, often styled into a neat fade, with a hint of curls at the top. He has a broad, charming smile that can easily disarm anyone, but his eyes, a lighter shade of brown, often hint at the mischievous streak that runs through him. His style is laid back, favoring branded t-shirts, jeans, and sneakers, though he can pull off a suit with surprising ease when the occasion calls for it. Unlike his sister, Mwangi has always been more interested in the freedom that comes with their father's wealth rather than the responsibilities it brings. He is outgoing, always the life of the party, but beneath his carefree exterior lies a curiosity that could unravel the family's deepest secrets. To his wife and children, Muriuki is a successful businessman, generous and wise. They see him as a provider, a man who has earned his wealth through legitimate means, investing in land, real estate, and other ventures. However, underneath this facade lies a secret that would shatter his family's world. Muriuki is the elusive Mjomba, a name whispered in the darkest corners of Nairobi's drug underworld, but nobody knows him or his real names. For years, he has orchestrated the distribution of drugs across East Africa, maintaining a network that includes corrupt officials and ruthless enforcers. His double life is maintained with meticulous care, and his secret meetings in the dimly lit back rooms of a mountain lodge remain hidden. Muriuki is confident that his family suspects nothing, but lately, he's been noticing small changes, a curious glance from Wanjiku, a question about a late-night phone call, and he wonders if the threads of his hidden world are starting to fray. A wife's suspicion. Wanjiku, Muriuki's wife, is not only beautiful and intelligent but also keenly perceptive. Her position in the government means that she's accustomed to dealing with lies and deceit. Although she respects Muriuki's business acumen, she's begun to question how he can afford their opulent lifestyle. One evening, as they sit in their glass-walled living room overlooking Mount Kenya, she casually asks about the sources of his wealth. Muriuki, ever the smooth talker, deflects her inquiries with tales of land investments and stock market wins. Wanjiku smiles, but a seed of doubt has taken root in her mind. Meanwhile, Muthoni and Mwangi are living their own privileged lives, enjoying the perks of their father's wealth. Muthoni is a sharp and ambitious young woman, but she has grown wary of the whispers she hears in town about her father's mysterious business trips. Mwangi, carefree and always looking for the next party, finds himself stumbling across a strange key hidden in his father's study. He pockets it, thinking it might unlock one of the family's many safes. Later, while showing the key to Muthoni, he jokes about their father having a hidden treasure. Little do they know that the key opens a door to a side of their father they are unprepared to face. Wanjiku Njoroge had always been a woman of sharp intuition, honed by her years as a senior government official. She was used to reading between the lines, catching the smallest details others often missed. For years, she had accepted Muriuki's explanations about their wealth, stories of successful land investments, high-stakes business deals, and the occasional lucky stock market move. But recently, things didn't quite add up. Muriuki's business trips had become more frequent and often unannounced, his phone calls more secretive, and the glances he exchanged with certain guests at their lavish parties seemed to carry unspoken messages. One night, after Muriuki came home late, Wanjiku caught a whiff of something different on him, a faint scent of unfamiliar cologne mixed with something else, something that made her uneasy, though she couldn't put her finger on what it was. As weeks passed, Wanjiku began to notice other signs that fed her growing suspicion. The sudden influx of cash into their accounts, the new business partners Muriuki refused to introduce to her, and the late-night phone calls that he took behind closed doors all raised red flags. She tried to ask him casually about these changes, but Muriuki's answers were vague, lacking the usual confidence she admired. At one point, Wanjiku stumbled upon a strange document in his study, an unsigned contract with terms that seemed too secretive, too risky for a legitimate business. Her mind replayed every detail, every odd look and unexplained absence. Was there something darker behind their wealth, something her husband had hidden from her all these years? Wanjiku decided not to confront him directly yet, but the seed of doubt grew deeper, and she quietly started paying more attention, determined to uncover the truth behind Muriuki's hidden world. Muriuki Njoroge was a man who thrived under pressure, and he knew that his wife's growing curiosity could unravel everything he had built. He loved Wanjiku deeply, but he couldn't afford for her to keep digging into his affairs. Her keen mind was getting too close to the truth, and he needed a solution that would both protect his secret and keep her satisfied. So, he leveraged the network of influential connections he had cultivated over the years, including a few high-ranking officials with a keen interest in maintaining his business's smooth operations. Muriuki orchestrated a plan that would see Wanjiku's career take a significant leap forward, an international promotion that would take her far from the reach of his hidden world. Muriuki pulled strings behind the scenes, presenting Wanjiku as the ideal candidate for a prestigious post, deputy ambassador at the Kenyan embassy in Belgium. It was a role that came with significant responsibility and visibility, one that he knew would appeal to Wanjiku's ambitions. When the offer came, Wanjiku was both surprised and thrilled. It was a dream promotion, an opportunity to represent her country on the global stage, something she had worked towards for years. Muriuki feigned support, showering her with praise and encouraging her to take the role, even as he inwardly celebrated the distance it would put between her and his affairs. With Wanjiku preparing for her move to Belgium, her focus shifted to learning the ropes of her new position and arranging their children's affairs in her absence. Muriuki felt the weight of her scrutiny lift, and for the first time in months, he could breathe easily, knowing that his secrets would remain buried, at least for a while longer. As Wanjiku prepared for her new role as the deputy ambassador at the Kenyan embassy in Belgium, she faced an unexpected request from her children. Muthoni and Mwangi, accustomed to the comforts of their father's wealth but feeling the distance that often existed between them and their parents, saw the move as a chance to be closer to their mother. Muthoni, with her ambitious nature and desire to explore international law, believed that studying in Europe would open doors to her career. Mwangi, on the other hand, was less driven by academics but saw an opportunity to escape the shadows of his father's expectations and embrace the thrill of a new country. They both pleaded with their parents, insisting that accompanying their mother to Belgium would be the best for their futures. Initially, Muriuki hesitated, knowing that having his children overseas might make it harder to keep an eye on them, especially Mwangi, whose curiosity had been a concern. But after discussing it with Wanjiku, they reached a compromise. Muthoni and Mwangi could move to Belgium, but only if they both committed to pursuing their studies seriously. Muthoni would continue her education in international law, while Mwangi would find a suitable program to further his interests. Reluctantly, but with a glimmer of hope, Mwangi agreed, while Muthoni welcomed the condition with enthusiasm. For Muriuki, this turn of events was a blessing in disguise. With his wife and children out of the country, he could focus on consolidating his operations without their questions or curious glances. As he watched them pack their bags and make plans for their new lives in Europe, he let out a sigh of relief, convinced that he had bought himself precious time. Muriuki believed he could now fully protect his double life, free from the close scrutiny that had been tightening around him. Little did he know that the distance wouldn't make his secrets any safer. As Mwangi settled into his new life in Belgium, he found himself unexpectedly drawn to the world of technology. Surrounded by cutting-edge research and new perspectives, he decided to pursue a degree in software engineering with a focus on cybersecurity. Unlike his carefree days back in Kenya, Mwangi became dedicated to mastering the intricacies of coding, network systems, and digital forensics. His natural curiosity, which had once led him to sneak around his father's study, now fueled his deep dive into the world of hacking and cybersecurity. Over time, he transformed from a student with a passing interest in technology into a formidable hacker, able to break into complex systems with ease. The challenge of decoding encrypted data and the thrill of outsmarting digital defenses became his new passion. Upon completing his degree, Mwangi's skills caught the attention of a local Belgian drug enforcement agency, one of the most advanced in Europe. The agency, funded by the Belgian government, was constantly on the lookout for talented cyber experts who could help them combat the sophisticated methods used by international drug cartels. They needed analysts who could trace digital trails, break into encrypted communication networks, and help bring down the cyber-savvy operations of drug lords. Mwangi's experience in cybersecurity, paired with his natural knack for hacking, made him an ideal candidate. He was hired as an analyst, tasked with monitoring suspicious online activities, decrypting communications, and providing crucial insights into the digital footprints left by traffickers. Mwangi found the work challenging and deeply engaging. He appreciated the sense of purpose it gave him, using his skills for good, helping to dismantle the operations of those who exploited others for profit. Little did he know, however, that his new role would soon bring him face to face with secrets that would hit closer to home than he could have ever imagined. As he sat in his sleek, government-funded office, poring over encrypted data and tracing suspicious transactions, Mwangi had no idea that the digital threads he was following would soon lead him to the hidden empire of the man he called his father. While Mwangi was diving into the world of cybersecurity, Muthoni's path in Belgium took a different but equally intense direction. Driven by her passion for justice and a desire to make a real impact, she threw herself into her studies, focusing on international law with a specialization in criminal justice. Her dedication paid off, and after years of hard work, Muthoni graduated with first-class honors, earning respect and admiration from both her professors and peers. Her sharp mind, attention to detail, and ability to think on her feet made her a standout, and she quickly caught the attention of prestigious law firms and government bodies alike. Upon graduation, Muthoni accepted a role in the prosecution department of Belgium's Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA. Her position allowed her to pursue her passion for criminal justice, but it also brought her into the heart of the battle against drug trafficking. Muthoni's role as a criminal lawyer meant she was responsible for building cases against drug traffickers, gathering evidence, and presenting airtight arguments in court. She was meticulous in her work, known for her ability to turn seemingly minor details into decisive evidence that could make or break a case. Her determination to see justice served became her driving force, and she quickly developed a reputation as a formidable prosecutor, feared by defense lawyers and criminals alike. Her caseload mostly involved drug-related offenses, ranging from minor possession cases to high-profile trials of cartel members who operated across borders. Muthoni found herself facing off against cunning defense attorneys and uncovering intricate networks of corruption and trafficking. Each case offered a new challenge, and she took pride in knowing that her efforts helped to keep dangerous criminals off the streets. Muthoni's work was intense, and it often reminded her of the whispers and rumors she had heard back in Kenya about her own father's unexplained wealth. But she dismissed those thoughts, focusing instead on the task at hand. Little did she know, her pursuit of justice was about to bring her closer to the secrets that she had once brushed aside, secrets that would soon collide with her brother's digital discoveries in ways that neither of them could have foreseen. Muriuki Engeorge had always been a man who kept his emotions close to his chest. Even with his family now spread across continents, he found it difficult to express his feelings, choosing instead to focus on maintaining a calm and distant demeanor. The last time he visited Muthoni and Mwangi in Belgium was just over a year ago, for Mwangi's graduation ceremony. It had been a brief trip, full of formalities and polite conversations, but Muriuki had kept the visit short. He had congratulated Mwangi on his achievement and exchanged a few encouraging words with Muthoni about her budding career, but he quickly returned to Kenya, citing urgent business matters. For him, the visit had been more about maintaining appearances than bonding with his children. Since then, their contact had been limited to occasional video calls, usually initiated by Muthoni or Wanjiku, who tried to keep the family close despite the physical distance. Whenever they did manage to get him on a call, Muriuki was polite but reserved, never lingering on details about their lives. He asked the usual questions about their well-being and general life in Belgium, but he rarely inquired about their work. To him, Muthoni was simply pursuing her passion for law, and Mwangi was working with computers, vague ideas that kept him content without digging deeper. Muriuki believed it was better not to meddle too much. He didn't want to raise suspicion about his own affairs, and besides, he thought his children were leading safe, ordinary lives far from the dangers of his world. However, to Muthoni and Mwangi, their father's distant behavior felt like a growing rift. They missed the close family dinners they used to share back in Kenya, the laughter, and even the occasional arguments. They noticed how, during their calls, Muriuki seemed distracted, glancing at his phone or rushing off for a business meeting before they had a chance to have a real conversation. Muthoni, ever perceptive, wondered if his heart was truly in these calls or if he was simply maintaining the minimum contact to keep up appearances. Mwangi, on the other hand, couldn't shake the feeling that their father's distance wasn't just physical. He seemed to be hiding something, a secret that cast a shadow over their once warm family bond. As the months passed, the sense of disconnect only deepened. Wanjiku, busy with her duties as the deputy ambassador, tried to reassure the children that their father loved them but was simply absorbed in his business. Yet even she couldn't ignore the sense of isolation that had crept into their once tight-knit family. Neither Muriuki nor his children could foresee that the paths they were walking, so seemingly separate, would soon converge in a way that would bring all their secrets into the open, threatening to change their lives forever. Wanjiku's visit to Kenya had been a highly anticipated trip, one she had been looking forward to for weeks. It was an official duty, accompanying the Belgian Prime Minister on a diplomatic visit, but Wanjiku saw it as a chance to reconnect with her roots and, most importantly, spend time with her husband, Muriuki. She hadn't been back in Kenya for nearly a year, and despite her busy schedule in Belgium, she missed the familiarity of home, the warmth of the highlands, and the comfort of Muriuki's presence. She hoped they could steal a few private moments away from the diplomatic engagements, but things did not unfold as she had expected. When she informed Muriuki of her travel plans, she expected him to be excited, or at least make time to see her. Instead, he casually mentioned that he would be in Mombasa for urgent business during the same period. He had sounded distracted on the phone, assuring her that he wished he could be in Nairobi to welcome her but that his obligations could not wait. Muriuki's explanation seemed reasonable at first. His businesses always kept him busy, after all, but as the days went by without even a visit or an effort to rearrange his schedule, Wanjiku couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. For 4 days, Wanjiku attended high-level meetings, gave speeches, and hosted the Belgian Prime Minister alongside Kenyan officials. Each night, she returned to their large, empty home in Nairobi, where memories of family dinners and laughter lingered like shadows in the halls. She called Muriuki several times, hoping for a warm conversation that might ease the growing ache in her chest, but he was always brief, claiming he was busy with meetings in Mombasa. On the last night of her stay, she drove to Mombasa unannounced, hoping to surprise him. But when she reached the location he had given her, she was met with the cold reality that Muriuki was nowhere to be found, no sign of his presence, no meetings listed at the local offices he claimed to be visiting. Feeling confused and increasingly suspicious, Wanjiku returned to Nairobi, more troubled than before. Her husband's casual disregard and vague excuses replayed in her mind like a broken record. She tried to rationalize his behavior, telling herself that perhaps he was simply overwhelmed with work, but deep down, her intuition whispered that there was something he wasn't telling her. When it came time to board her flight back to Belgium, she left Kenya with a heart heavy with disappointment and a mind swelling with unanswered questions. Back in Belgium, her anger simmered beneath the surface. Muriuki's evasiveness, his absence, and the unconvincing explanations gnawed at her. She wondered if she had been naive all these years, turning a blind eye to the gaps in his stories. As she unpacked in her quiet apartment, she resolved that she would no longer ignore these doubts. Wanjiku decided she would start looking into things herself, with or without Muriuki's cooperation, determined to find out why her husband seemed to be slipping away from her and what secrets might lie behind his urgent trips and evasive words. Unbeknownst to her, this decision would set off a chain of events that would bring to light the hidden life that Muriuki had so carefully concealed. Less than 2 months after Wanjiku's trip to Kenya, the news channels in Belgium and across the world lit up with reports of a massive drug bust at the Mombasa port. It was the largest seizure in recent memory, millions of dollars worth of heroin intercepted by Kenyan authorities before it could enter the market. The reports were detailed, showing images of law enforcement officers standing beside stacks of drug-filled containers, the ship docked under heavy surveillance. The media buzzed with speculation about the smugglers' identities and their potential connections to a larger international cartel network. Wanjiku watched the coverage unfold with a tight knot in her stomach, her mind flashing back to her husband's recent trip to Mombasa. That evening, she placed a call to Muriuki, hoping to ease her rising anxiety. As soon as he answered, she could sense his usual brisk tone, but she also detected a hint of tension in his voice that he tried to mask with forced cheerfulness. They exchanged the usual pleasantries, discussing the children's latest updates and how life had been back in Kenya since she left. But Wanjiku couldn't resist bringing up the subject that had been on her mind all day. After a moment of silence, she carefully asked, "Have you seen the news about the big drug bust in Mombasa? They said it's one of the largest in years. Do they know who the importers are?" Muriuki's response was swift, but his voice held a strange edge, like he was choosing his words too carefully. Yes, I saw something about that on the news," he replied, his tone casual, almost dismissive. "These things happen from time to time, you know. The authorities will deal with it. It's probably just some low-level smugglers trying their luck." He laughed lightly, but the sound lacked its usual warmth. Before she could ask any more questions, Muriuki shifted the conversation abruptly, steering it toward lighter topics. He asked about a new restaurant she had mentioned in Brussels and how Mwangi and Muthoni were adapting to their busy schedules. Wanjiku, feeling the change in direction, tried to press him gently for more details, but Muriuki continued to evade, making it clear he wasn't interested in discussing the matter further. Wanjiku couldn't help but notice how unusually vague he sounded, so unlike his usual confident and assertive self. It was as if he was deliberately steering away from the topic, avoiding any discussion that might delve deeper into the details of the drug bust. She ended the call with a tight smile, pretending everything was fine, but her mind was spinning with questions. Why was Muriuki so keen on changing the subject? Why hadn't he shown even a hint of concern or curiosity about such a major event happening in a city where he had recently been on business? As she put down the phone, the uneasy feeling that had settled in her chest since her visit to Kenya returned, stronger than ever. That night, as she lay in bed, Wanjiku replayed their conversation over and over, analyzing every word, every pause, every deflection. Her instinct screamed that Muriuki was hiding something big. She didn't want to believe that the man she had shared her life with for over 2 decades could be involved in anything so dangerous. But his evasiveness only deepened her suspicions. Wanjiku resolved to keep her eyes open and dig deeper, knowing that the answers she sought might lead to truths she wasn't prepared to face. Wanjiku couldn't shake the unease that had settled in her mind after her conversation with Muriuki. Determined to get to the bottom of what was really happening with the drug bust in Mombasa, she decided to tap into her network back in Kenya. She had built many connections over her years as a senior government official, and she trusted some of these colleagues to provide her with insight into matters that weren't usually made public. Wanjiku made call after call, reaching out to former colleagues, friends, and even contacts within the law enforcement circles, hoping to gather any details that might shed light on the mysterious drug shipment. But to her surprise, every conversation ended the same way, with vague answers, awkward pauses, and an almost rehearsed denial of any knowledge about the case. Some of her contacts even hinted that the details of the investigation were classified, far above their level of access, which was unusual given her connections. The more she pushed, the more she sensed that the matter was being intentionally kept under wraps. It felt as if a wall had been built around the incident, with no leaks, no rumors, and certainly no official reports making their way out. Wanjiku couldn't understand why such a high-profile seizure, one that should have been a significant win for the authorities, was being shrouded in secrecy. Then, just as she was beginning to feel frustrated and ready to give up, a new development broke on the news. The media reported that the ship carrying the intercepted drugs had been ordered to leave Kenyan waters. The captain and crew were not detained, nor were they charged. Instead, they were escorted by the Kenyan Navy out of the country's jurisdiction, with orders to return to their point of origin. Wanjiku watched the news in disbelief, trying to understand what she was hearing. The decision seemed strange, almost suspicious. Why would the authorities let such a valuable piece of evidence slip away? Why not detain the ship, arrest the crew, and investigate further? The news reports offered little explanation, leaving more questions than answers. Speculation began to swirl among journalists and the public, with some suggesting that there might have been diplomatic pressure involved or even a deal struck behind closed doors. Others hinted at possible corruption or a cover-up involving high-ranking officials. Wanjiku's unease deepened, as she wondered whether her own husband's sudden trip to Mombasa around the same time might be connected to this shadowy operation. The fact that even her most reliable contacts were in the dark suggested that something larger, more dangerous, was at play. Wanjiku knew she couldn't ignore the matter any longer. The inconsistencies and secrecy surrounding the ship's release felt like more than just government red tape. They felt like pieces of a puzzle that, once put together, might reveal something deeply unsettling. With each passing day, her suspicions about Muriuki's involvement grew, but she still hoped she was wrong. As she sat alone in her apartment in Belgium, Wanjiku resolved to keep digging, even if it meant discovering truths that could shake her family to its core. She needed to know why the ship, its illicit cargo, and its crew were allowed to slip away so easily, and what, if anything, her husband had to do with it. The next day, Wanjiku met Mwangi at a cozy cafe near his office in Brussels. Over lunch, they chatted about work and family, but as the meal wound down, Wanjiku's tone grew serious. Leaning in, she told Mwangi about the mysterious drug bust in Mombasa and how the ship was released without arrests. She asked if he could use his skills and access to find out more, especially through international agencies or Interpol. Mwangi, surprised by his mother's urgency, hesitated but saw the concern in her eyes. He agreed to discreetly look into the case, curious about what he might uncover. Later that evening, Mwangi met his mother in her apartment, the tension between them palpable. He carefully pulled out the folded paper from his back pocket, the list he had managed to print after hours of hacking into secure databases. His hands felt clammy, and he could see the concern in his mother's eyes as she waited for him to explain what he had found. They sat down at the dining table, a small lamp casting a pool of light over the crisp sheet of paper. Mwangi hesitated for a moment, his mind racing with the implications of what he was about to reveal. Then, with a deep breath, he unfolded the list and began to read through the names. As they scanned the document together, Wanjiku's face grew paler with each line, her heart pounding in her chest. Mwangi read out the familiar names of politicians and businessmen, people who held significant power back in Kenya, all marked as persons of interest by the FBI. When they reached number 16, Mwangi's voice faltered, and Wanjiku gasped audibly. There it was, Mr. Muriuki Enjorej. Mwangi's hands trembled slightly as he processed the reality of what they had just discovered. Wanjiku's mind reeled. Her husband, the man she had built a life with, was on a list of people under investigation for links to the drug trade. Her heart raced with a mix of disbelief, anger, and a deep, knowing sense of betrayal. Mwangi, equally shocked, looked at his mother with wide eyes, unsure of what to say. A heavy silence settled between them as the weight of the truth sank in. Everything they thought they knew about Muriuki, about their family, now seemed like a fragile lie, ready to crumble under the weight of this new discovery. As Mwangi and Wanjiku sat in stunned silence, trying to absorb the reality of Muriuki's name appearing on the list, a sudden knock at the door broke the heavy stillness. They both turned, startled, and Wanjiku quickly tucked the printed list into a drawer before getting up to answer. When she opened the door, Muthoni walked in, her face flushed with a mixture of shock and anger. She barely acknowledged her brother, her eyes locked onto her mother with a fierce intensity. Wanjiku's concern deepened as she guided her daughter to a chair. "Muthoni, what's wrong?" Wanjiku asked, her voice barely steady. Muthoni took a deep breath, trying to calm herself, but the words stumbled out in a rush. "We just had a high-level department meeting at the office, Mom. It was virtual, with the FBI from the US and MI6 from the UK. They are working on building a criminal case for 38 key figures involved in the drug bust back home. It's going to The Hague, and they're looking to file serious charges." Mwangi's ears perked up, then he leaned forward, eyes wide with alarm. "What do you mean, 38 people?" Muthoni swallowed hard, her expression darkening. "I saw the list, Mwangi. It's the same one they've been investigating, and Dad's name is right there, number 16. They have evidence, financial trails, recorded meetings, and they're putting together a case for international prosecution." Wanjiku's breath caught in her throat, her hands clutching the edge of the table. For a moment, no one spoke, the weight of the revelation settling like a dense cloud in the room. Muthoni's anger was mixed with disbelief. All these years, he's been doing this. How could he keep this from us, from you, Mom? Mwangi's mind spun as he realized the gravity of the situation. Their father was not just a target of an investigation, he was entangled in a global web of crime. The realization that Muriuki's double life was unraveling, not just in Kenya but on an international stage, sent a shiver down their spines. As the three of them sat together, the reality of the battle that lay ahead became painfully clear. This was no longer just about uncovering a family secret, it was about facing the consequences that could tear their family apart forever. As the reality of their father's secret life crashed down around them, Mwangi, Muthoni, and Wanjiku realized that their lives would never be the same. With Muriuki now a target of a global investigation, they faced an impossible choice: stand by the man they thought they knew or confront him with the truth and risk tearing their family apart. The threads of deception and hidden danger were tightening around them, and they knew that whatever came next would challenge everything they believed about loyalty, love, and justice. But this was only the beginning. To find out what happens next, how Mwangi, Muthoni, and Wanjiku navigate the dangers that lie ahead, and whether Muriuki's hidden empire will crumble, don't miss part 2. Will they be able to bring their father to justice, or will Muriuki find a way to outsmart them all? Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter of this gripping story. Follow us for updates, and get ready for part 2, where secrets unravel, alliances shift, and the battle for truth reaches new heights.